What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tanker, and welcome back to Axis and Allies 1951 Global 40 Edition, Turn 8. Um, the turn was kind of a turn, so let's get started. All right, the Soviet Union. Soviet Union had 139 IPC to spend. Did make some big purchases. They purchased two major factory upgrades for which totaled up to 40 IPC. They upgraded the factories in Slovakia and Romania. Those are now major factories, can produce 10 units. They bought, let's see here, 3, 6, 9. 9 infantry, 1 mech, 6 tanks. And then, let's see here. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. Let's see, 3. Well, here, I'll just go down the list of what they bought. All right, so 2 major factory upgrades. They did 3 infantry in Rome, 3 infantry in Slovakia, 3 tanks in Romania, 3 infantry in Iraq. They put a jet in Vladivostok. They put 3 tanks in Poland, 2 fighters in Leningrad, and a mech in India, and saved 1 IPC. Combat. The Soviets only did 2 things of combat this turn. No, 3 things of combat. They were all, 3 things of combat. First, the Soviets did a strategic bombing raid against the factory in Paris. They managed to avoid the AAA fire and scored 7 damage, so they maxed out the miner. Next, they took one of their bombers and did a attack on the US G40 that was on an oversight stationed alone up here in Holland, Belgium. The US G40 was destroyed and the Soviet bomber got away. And then the Soviets did a strategic bombing raid against the U.S. miner in Japan. The U.S. jet that was on the carrier did not scramble, and the Soviet bomber did survive the AAA and also got a damage of 7. Non-combat, again, not much in Asia. A little bit of movement, not so much movement here. And really, in Europe, the Soviet forces of Germany retreated out of southern Germany and back into Slovakia, trying and shorten the supply lines. And then at the end of the turn, the Soviets collected 79 IPC plus 6 for bonuses, so they got 85 IPC. NATO. All right, so NATO had $0 in the bank because they lost it to the Soviets. They did launch 1 attack. They took an infantry and a tank out of Normandy on the transport and went up to capture Norway. And they were able to take it. They killed the last remaining Soviet airborne unit, but also lost an infantry as well. And then for non-combats, they just took the remaining infantry from Normandy, put them in Paris, and then took the remaining infantry that was in Egypt to help and put them into Transjordan to help bolster up the British lines there. And so then at the end of the turn, NATO collected 33 IPC with no bonuses. China. All right, China had 57 IPC to spend. They repaired the Kiangsi factory here. They bought 3 infantry for Kiangsi. They bought 3 more infantry for Peking. Because of the turn 2 rule that I explained on turn 2, where China can cannibalize a minor factory to make their Peking factory a major, the Chinese elected to scrap the miner in Malaya to turn the Peking factory back into a major. Let's see here. Then they bought 3 mechanized infantry for Siam, 3 infantry that they put in Shanghai, and then bought 2 subs that they put off of French Indochina. Combat. All right, combat. So, the first thing China did was they took their mech and 2 tanks from Siam, and then 3 mechanized infantry from Quichao, and they attacked the 4 Sado airborne troopers here in Guangxi. The battle went 2 rounds, and then 4 airborne. The 4 Sado airborne forces were destroyed, and then the Chinese lost 3 mechanized infantry. And then their final battle was they did a combined ground amphibious assault on Hong Kong. So first, the naval battle, which involved 2 Chinese destroyers as well as this Chinese fighter and that Chinese fighter. The battle went 2 rounds. The Chinese were able to destroy the Sado destroyer cruiser and 2 transports that were sitting off of Hong Kong. However, the Chinese did lose their 2 destroyers as well. Or, yes, China lost their 2 destroyers as well. For the ground battle went 2 rounds as well. And in the end, China killed 2 infantry, 1 Sado infantry and 2 Sado tanks at the loss of 2 infantry. And then on the non-combat, really all China really did was put 2 infantry up here in Manchuria to act as a roadblock to the U.S. 8th Army that had captured Korea. And so then at the end of the turn, China collected 37 plus 13 for bonuses. They got their plus 10 for Greater China back because they were able to retake Hong Kong and No, they do not get that back. I have to switch that. No, they do not get that back because the Americans still hold Korea, and Korea is part of Greater China. So no, the Chinese do not have 50. They have 40 IPC. They will have collected 40 IPC this turn. Yes. Right? Yeah, 37 plus 3 IPC for still controlling Formosa. So yes, China ends the turn with 40 IPC. My apologies. Okay, then we go over to the Brits, who had 25 IPC. They started off by doing 2 tech dice. They went for the advanced R&D and got it. So now when they do tech, they can succeed on a 5 or 6, not just a 6. Then they the first time this is the first time that I remembered doing it, and this is really the first time I think it's ever happened in a game. The British lend-leased NATO a tank, and basically how that goes is that kind of like in Global War 36, you buy the unit, it deploys from your factory, and then basically how I have it is it's from a naval base to a naval base, and that's what they decided to do with that. Lend-lease for the communists, I believe I explained it before, but real quick. So if the communists were to do lend-lease, it could go from Moscow overland to Peking, so long as there's nothing blocking the route to Peking or any of the other factories along in China. All right, and then finally the British also bought a jet, and that was their purchase. They did. Did they save anything? Yeah, they saved 4 IPC. Combat. They only had 1 thing of combat this turn, and that was to take 2 infantry, a self-propelled gun, and this fighter that was in Normandy, and they attacked a lone Soviet infantry that was left in northern Italy. The British got the hit, and the Soviets missed. Yes, the Soviets missed. And then there really was no non-combat for the Brits, except finally remembering to move these guys off of Australia, and this guy came back from up here. Oh, and then the bulk of the Army of the Rhine moved into West Germany to back up the U.S. First Army. Sato. All right, Sato had 35 IPC to spend. They had to recover their losses in Navy, so they bought a cruiser and 2 transports off of Borneo, and then they bought an air transport for Sydney and saved 2 IPC for that. They did not do any combat. They couldn't really do any non-combats. So then at the end of the turn, Sato collected 28 IPC plus 5 for bonuses. And that ended up being 35 IPC. Although, now I just remembered. Son of a gun. I didn't do the war bonds roll for China. So, rats. Alright, let's see what China gets on the war bonds roll. Okay, so China got another 5. Okay, so China has 45 IPC. 1 second here. Okay, so China got 45 IPC. Oh, that war bonds roll. I keep forgetting about it. Okay, so alright, so Sato, yeah, collected 33 or 28 plus 5 for bonuses and then plus 2 for IPC that they saved, so 35. Alright, the US. The US had 83 IPC to spend. So first off, they paid off the 6 damage to the Japanese factory, while also they did put down an air transport, and then this is 2 regiments of the 11th Airborne Division. And then over at home, they did their standard purchase of purchasing. Well, they replaced the B-47 that they lost in Holland, and then they bought 2 infantry, 2 self-propelled guns, 2 armor, and then 2 fighters. Combat. The U.S. had 2 combats this turn. They came down here and made their attack on Brazil. They were successful. They killed the 3 Soviet infantry that were defending it. However, 2 regiments from the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division were destroyed upon the landings. Heavy resistance on the beach. Heavy resistance on the beach. And then for the final, the U.S. did a combined ground and amphibious assault to retake Rome from the Soviets. They brought this cruiser over from the 6th Fleet and then used their 2 transports to pull the 4 infantry off of southern France to come down here to make the assault. There were 5 Soviet infantry defending. The cruiser did get 1 hit. And if I hadn't explained before, for this game, offshore bombardments, when they hit, that unit just comes off the board. It doesn't get a chance to retaliate. It's just clear off the board. So, following that, the Soviets had 4 more infantry to defend Rome. The battle went 2 rounds. The U.S. finished off the 4 Soviet infantry at a loss of 2 infantry. Whoops. Rats. I'm dropping stuff. At a loss of 2 infantry from the 89th Infantry Division. No moves in the Pacific, mainly because I kind of realized that the U.S. fleet in and around Japan is actually really weak. It was only 3 destroyers, a battleship, and a carrier with 1 jet aircraft on it. And I had toyed with the idea of taking the 8th Army into Amur, but realized that we weren't really going to get a lot of cover. And just the correlation of forces was pretty evenly matched. And it was unsure whether or not the U.S. would actually be able to pull off a victory up there. So the U.S. decided not to make any moves, let alone, nor did they have really the aircraft support to support any of these bombers making runs like here at Peking or at Vladivostok or even along the China coast. Just Not really worth the risk of trying to risk my bombers, which kind of true to form. Just kind of thinking, even like during World War II, the Pacific is kind of getting shunted on IPC, while the U.S. puts most of its focus over here on the European theater in defeating the Russians. And then real quick, so then non-combats, the U.S. moved its forces off the eastern United States, getting them to Europe. They took 2 jets off of Portugal to reinforce the First Army in West Germany. And then they took the the moniker of the 7th Fleet. They took the 2 destroyers, the battleship, the carrier, and all the transports from Japan, brought them down to Midway to meet up with the 2 destroyers from the West Coast. So this U.S. 7th Fleet has been created here off of Midway, and will be ready to return to Japanese waters in the coming within the next turn. Okay, now that it is the end of the turn, I don't want to knock something over. The nuclear fallout in Germany has dissipated. The Soviets may now re-enter Germany. They may rebuild. They may start building units again, and they can possibly repair that airfield if they so wish. All right, coming down to the... Oh, then real quick. At the end of the turn, the U.S. collected 68 IPC plus 17 for bonuses, ending with 85 IPC. All right, coming down here to the victory cities chart. Russia's basically lost all their advantages, and like I said in the last video, it doesn't look like the communists are gonna make it out of this one. They might. I guess it all depends now what Russia can do with these 2 major factories and what they can do before the full might of a revived NATO can. Basically, the Russians are on a very, very short time frame, because at least the way I see it, once NATO can fully remobilize itself and help stabilize the lines in Germany, there's not really going to be a way for the Soviets to really win this. But we'll at least try. Like I said before, I'll try and at least do 1 or 2 more turns just to see if maybe the communists can once again reverse their fortunes in this war or not. All right, so that is going to be it for turn 8, and we will see you guys next time for turn 9. So until then, guys, as always, take care.